Council, can you lead us in an invocation?
Yes, Mayor. If everyone would bow their heads. Lord, I'd like to begin by thanking you for all the wonderful gifts you've bestowed upon us and all the wonderful gifts that we will be receiving from you, Lord. Lord, please guide and govern everything discussed here tonight with order and love. I also ask that you look upon the City Commission and fill them with wisdom. May they act in accordance with your will and their decisions be for the well-being of all. Amen.
Commissioner Ramirez, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You all may be seated. Under public comment, Update on the water plant number 2. Mr. Cruz.
Mayor and Commissioners, you have in your packet, you have my memo. Just to go over it real quick, notice to proceed was July 2014. Final completion will be May 3rd, 2016. Total contract time was 660 days. Up to date, as of Friday, March 6th, 236 days, which is 36% of the construction has been completed. And final contract days remaining are 424, which is 64%. Total contract amount, $8,343,000. Bill to date, $1,975,618, which is 24% of the project. Next monthly meeting is scheduled for March 13th at 10 o'clock. Work update, the electrical subcontractor continues to install the duct banks and electrical manholes, which is about 38% complete. Delivery of clear cones was delayed from mid-February to mid-March. The fabrication, however, they have been delivered. Yesterday, they showed up, the cranes are out there, metal is in there, so the CBI has mobilized. So mid-March is today, or it was yesterday. Security wall, the footing of the foundation was completed, CMU wall to follow. Chemical building foundation has been poured, and they'll start working on that. All submittals are up to date. And the projected work is underground electrical duct banks to continue. The filter foundation work, that was delayed mostly because of weather. But it rains a lot, it's in a hole, so it's been delayed. But it's not gonna delay the project. The filter security wall has been completed should be completed next month. The projected delivery, like I was saying, has already began, which is all the metal parts of the plant. Underground piping will follow once everything starts with the claricones and the filters being constructed. So is there any, it looks like it is up to date, it's on schedule, and I'm glad we see CBI out there with their big crane and moving steel around. And Mr. Dario Guerra's here if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to add to my presentation.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cruz, as far as, and I just specifically on the delivery of clear cones, how long was that delayed, and is that going to be something that we're going to have to do credit days on, or
I'm sorry, what was the question?
on the delay of the clear cones
No,
delivery?
they're there now. No, it was delayed a month, but really they were ahead of schedule to start with.
Okay.
But it was not delayed a month, probably about 2 weeks. But
Yes, 2 weeks, and he's correct. We were ahead of schedule to begin with, and so we're still ahead of.
Still up to par.
Still up to par. Well, we're catching up to the schedule. I mean, it's to, it's just, we had some play, and some of that play is eaten up, but we still have a little bit of play left. So we'll be okay.
Additionally,
Also, the next meeting is going to be the ninth.
it's rescheduled.
It's rescheduled for Thursday, yes.
Monday
At
before.
10 o'clock, so that's the only other thing I had to.
And at the meeting, we have who present to be
We
able
have
to talk?
of course, all the contractors and the
Okay.
subcontractors, water development board, the city personnel, everybody that's involved with all the paperwork, the owners, I mean, the contractors, the engineers, and Juan Santana with the water development.
Okay, so they're able to come and check on their project as well?
Oh,
and-
yes.
And any updates are facilitated through you all or through the city?
To update, at that day, everything
Everything gets
is thrown on the table. If there's any problems, any pay requests, usually that's when the pay requests come in. If there's question with some of the contractors doing this, and of course, the paperwork with Mr. Cervantes in charge of the Davis-Bacon payrolls from the contractor, and that's all ironed out at that meeting. And Leroy Gonzalez also will be there with finance, and anything we do with pay requests, if there's something missing, everything's ironed out at that meeting.
additionally, Mr. Cruz, I was going to ask about the transfer line. So the transfer line is complete and in place?
The transfer of treated water is in place.
The transfer of treated water. And at what point is the current reservoir going to go offline?
Well, remember, we got funding for the Water Development Board, but for the pad.
Correct.
That's been approved, I think, the city's gotten paperwork, the plans and everything's been approved. Now, in March, the first week of March, where the applications due for all the fundings, we send in, I think, four projects, which is the pad, well, not the pad, the construction money for the reservoir, construction money for the lift station projects, construction for, what's the other one? There's another one. There's three. The EDAP. The EDAP was a pad also. I think that was a little last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we talked about that. That it needs to go now for construction money, and we're going for that right now.
I guess my concern is on the reservoir. So since we're barely going to go out for construction, and so we don't plan to shut down the current reservoir until we secured construction funding?
Yes and no. Remember, we're doing a transfer line of raw water right now. It's probably about 30% complete from the other reservoir.
Correct.
Which, once that is complete, then we can put that one offline safely and run the plant with, especially once it's completed with the expansion. So at that point, we can get it offline. And I think they would prefer it gets offline because it's using too much chemicals to try to treat that water. It's a little different right now because we've had a lot of rain, so there's not a lot of water demands. But as soon as it gets hot again, the demands are going to go up. Irrigation districts start breaking canals, and we're at their mercy if it breaks, and we don't have that reservoir or that line in place. But that line work is continuing, the transfer of the raw water.
And I guess at some point, this commission will decide, or is that something that once the raw water transfer line is complete, at that point, we're just going to shut down the reservoir? Or is that a decision that we'll make at that time?
Well, the decision will be on staff. If they need to shut it down at a certain point, or are they still blending, if it still works. But we do have an alternate, which is going to be the transfer line, the raw water transfer line. And of course, if funding comes to play with the Water Development Board, then that'll come to you all, how the numbers work and what's going to happen.
As we get closer to that event,
Those will be, of course, we'll get on the IUP, if you remember what that is, intentional use plan, and they get all this, and then anybody who's ready to go moves up, and then they'll try to, see how the money gets distributed. Now, the EDAP runs separately. The EDAP is available all the time. And now we've heard some news that EDAP's cutting funds like everybody else, but until we get to that point, I just can't see how they cannot fund when they funded a pad. How can that not fund construction?
Now, and at what point does the new SWIFT monies come into play? Because we do have projects that we applied to under the SWIFT fund, is that correct?
The SWIFT fund?
Yes.
When did they come to play?
Yeah.
Well, the
I mean,
SWIFT-
have we, because we got some projects put on the state master water plan, correct?
Yeah, well, yes, to get in the IUP, which is probably better funding than the SWIFT funds, because the SWIFT funds are 100%
Loan.
loan. And of course, the Water Development Board, we've been securing at least 30% grant, so that's and I understand if you get a Water Development Board, even if it's funded, the interest rate's even better than the SWIFT funds.
And the SWIFT fund is rapid repay. They want to
Right.
build
Well, they
that-
want to keep using
They
it.
want to build the fund up, so.
Longer-term loan also. The SWIFT gives you a longer-term loan, but that's the only reason you want.
I think they give you a higher interest rate. It's not as attractive to smaller cities as it is to
Larger cities.
Any questions? Any more questions? Or any for Mr. Guerra?
any questions? Thank you, Mr. Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Guerra.
Thank you, Dalia.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Moving on to presentation of department reports, Chief Gonzalez.
Yes, Mayor and Commission, before you, you have the department reports for the police department, the utility department, and the municipal court. If there's any questions on that, the directors will be able to answer that. Every month, we're just gonna add the monthly report, so, for the mayor and commission's review. So if there's any issues that we need to discuss, then the director can come forward. I do let the mayor and commission know that we are having interviews for the utilities director this week, so hopefully we can hire that position. And we also are having interviews for the city marshal, so also on the municipal court. So we're moving on those two positions as fast as we can to hire and fill out those positions.
Any questions for any of the department heads? All right, thank you. Under contracts, A, consider authorizing the interim city manager to purchase a camera equipment and generator from from Green Equipment from Fort Worth, Texas, a Houston Galveston area council vendor in the amount of $80,000. Ms. Gonzalez.
Mayor and Commissioners, this item was approved on September 23rd, 2014, at the budget approval, when we were having the budget approval. We went out and solicited 2 buy-board vendors. The current one, which is Green Equipment, and Kinlock. And there is a $17,000 difference between Kinlock and Green Equipment. After reviewing their quotes with the wastewater department, the people that are going to be using it, they have suggested that we go with the current vendor, and that is Green Equipment for the amount of $80,000. This equipment, this camera equipment, will provide rapid assessment of line conditions and will identify any maintenance need that are needed.
And so the equipment, the 2 quotes come from the exact features?
The exact features. In fact, Green Equipment has a little bit more to offer than Kinlock, Mayor.
Okay. And what kind of a warranty does it have?
I'm not really sure. I can look, I can find out for you,
And we
Mayor.
opt for the, does it give you like length on the warranties? We opt for a longer warranty or?
Yes,
And is
Mayor.
that included in the
They-
price
They
or
were a
separate?
lot better. Yes, Mayor.
It's included in the price?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Ms. Gonzalez, on this, and I guess also for you, Ramiro, training, is that provided, and is that, do you feel comfortable with the amount of training that they're going to be providing? Have you had a chance to do that, Ramiro? Para que te vean todos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I believe it's part of the contract also, Chief.
Okay.
It does have a training along with it. So most of we've had hands-on training with other city that have come out here and actually help us out. So it's pretty basic.
And is this going to be assigned as a piece of equipment to, 2 or 3 guys, or just one guy?
Basically, I think that would probably be the best thing, to actually have at least maybe 1 or 2 guys trained on it. Yeah, so they're the only ones that will be putting hands onto it. But it's pretty basic. It's something not very hard to learn to use, and it's going to be a good item. Get it.
And what about maintenance on this equipment? Because I know that when we talked about this at the budget, there's some sort of a hose that has a camera on it.
Yes, sir.
And so is there any kind of maintenance provided, because with this type of equipment, it's my understanding, like the lens is the key, right?
Yes.
And after repeated use, it'll get scratched or,
Yes.
and once it gets scratched, and then the picture is fuzzy, and then it's not as useful. So have we looked at maintenance and who can provide that? Or is that going to be something where we have to send it off to get maintenance? And then,
That would be something I have to look into, but I could probably have something in the next commission meeting.
yeah, I just, one of the things is, I think it was, maybe it was, I'm not sure if it was Wesco or Mercedes, but they had a similar piece. And one of the things that they had mentioned was it was great for like the first 6 months we had it. And then they had an issue with the lens, and they had to send the entire piece of equipment to the manufacturer somewhere out of state after 6 months. Yeah. And again, it's based on how much you use it as well.
Yes,
But I would definitely look into the maintenance of it, because if we have to send it out of state, how long are we going to be without it? That kind of thing. Or, I don't know, maybe there's somebody locally that can do it, just so that we're always, aware that, it will eventually break down after repeated use. So we want to make sure that we keep it operational.
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, the current camera equipment that we have, it's outdated. If I recall, we never had an issue as far as lenses, or it was mostly the wiring.
The wiring.
Whatever, the way it
And did
traveled.
somebody locally work on that?
Yes, they
Okay,
did.
great.
But as far as the lens or having to have major repairs to it, no, it never had anything.
But
And
we
that's the
do-
same vendor.
But we do have somebody that we know locally that can
We
work
did
on
get someone
this.
locally. For that, we did.
Perfect.
I'm not sure about the camera lens and that, because we never had that issue.
Sure.
But of course, we would look into it.
Great.
What about the transporting this device?
Oh, yeah, we're also looking into, I believe,
It's not on there.
it's not on here, but there's a trailer we can purchase to have that in there, and it'll be stationary inside there, so we'll be able to hook that trailer on and take it out to whatever work site, and it'll basically have the computer there, the screen, everything, yeah, and I guess basically that's where everything will be stationed at.
Yeah,
And-
well,
and-
but my concern is just when they're transferring it, banging it up or something, but,
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure we'll have some type, they usually come in some type of a suitcase type thing.
Oh, okay.
With a sponge in the inside, and so they're pretty well protected.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mayor and Commissioner, if I may, I've been able to go out through Mr. Ramirez, and we actually used Alamos in certain
Yes, sir.
different residences, and Ronnie was there as well. It's a great tool that our staff needs, and I think that all those issues of the safety, maintenance, and the training is very friendly user, and I think that they already had some hands-on training because they've been working in partnership with them. So I think that speaking with other cities, myself also asking them questions about the expense and so forth, I think very low maintenance and not any issues whatsoever. Basically, it comes down to the operator, and it cannot be operated by one person. Very friendly user. So I think that Mr. Ramirez already has a plan in place that we're going to be able to secure that equipment and insure it and so forth, and also look at the warranty so forth, so we can be able to make sure that we follow through on it.
I think one of the things that I'd like to see, that I know we use the other one at different times. You use it for the pipe work, but also as we look at the drainage on the streets, as we start getting closer to our hurricane season, to do it way ahead of time. This is something we'll be able to utilize, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, ma'am.
Maybe if we can provide like a schedule of which areas we have, when you're not using it for particular pipe work or breaks, a schedule where you are able to say this quadrant of the city was looked in, and we use that to make sure that right now when it's dry, we're able to go in there and clean up so that we're not trying, we can help our residents as much as we can with, once the flooding comes.
Okay.
You can only do so much, but if it's a small grade, we'd be ahead of the game. So can you work on that for us, please? I'd
Yes.
like to be able to see something like that.
No problem.
What areas you like, which you want to work on, and what are the results of that, things as we look at to make sure, especially in the ones, Mr. Ramirez, that you know that have a lot of flooding.
Yeah, I think we all know
That-
which areas those are. Yeah.
If we could start on those points first,
Okay.
and then work our way around so that we can at least have some assurance to our residents that we're ahead of that
Okay.
before it happens.
I can do that.
We can include it in the emergency action plan from the fire department, the chief that he has,
Okay.
so we can include it in there.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners,
Yes.
and I will find out on the warranty, and I will email you with the answers. to the
Very
warranty
good.
question.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve is presented.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor state aye. Aye. Motion approved. Consider and approve the land lease agreement between PSJISD and the City of San Juan, Texas, related to the new Sorensen Elementary for the proposed community school park project. Mr. Ponce.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of
Good
the
evening.
commission. We're bringing for you the land lease agreement for the proposed park at Sorensen. We've actually Mr. Vasquez has drafted this and drafted the agreement and sent it over to PSJ's council, who is currently reviewing it at this time. And we're essentially asking for this. It's a part as a part of the grant. We must have a land lease agreement in place since we are doing it in PSJ property. So this is something that would need to be put in place. Their next meeting is on March 30th. where they will review it. They have responded with some questions, which I in turn responded. And from what I've spoken to Mr. Campos, everything seems to be looking fairly well. So now we're just essentially waiting for the response.
I guess my question is, council, or you, Mr. Ponce, there's some items that are blank, timing, another one has to do with a dollar amount. Who's going to fill those out and before we sign anything, so we know what we're agreeing to?
Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry. When Mr. Ponce approached me, he told me, we have the requirements of the grant. That's what I need you to fill in at this. Because we're under a timeline, we're trying to get this approved by the City Commission right now and have the school district approve it. So we put everything we had at this time in this contract. We're trying to negotiate or get the information from PSJ as to what times we will be able to use the park. But we're going to fill that in. Now, we don't generally like bringing contracts like this to the City Commission, but
Correct.
because of our timelines, we have to have this approved soon. So what we're asking is if this commission, short answer, I can't answer that right now. We're trying to get all this done between myself, Mr. Ramirez, Mr. Campos, and Mr. Ponce. But because of our timeline, we have to do it this way. So we're going to ask if you could please pass it this way, if y'all like, and allow me to fill it in. And with PSJ also, fill it in at that time. I mean, we don't have an option right now other than to have this with these blanks.
I mean, the two blanks, one is timing, which is, I don't think is a critical issue. The other one has to do with the indemnity and liability. Would that be something that we would be looking at that the city has in existence already and not
Yes.
necessarily increase?
No, we would not. And it should say just to the extent permitted by law, which, I mean, we're not required to provide, we would not be required to indemnify anybody else. And we would also just use our insurance that we have in place at this time.
And that would be what we would, on section 7.01, in the aggregate amounts not less than blank.
But isn't
vehicles.
that just for the property itself?
We have yes, we have
Because
insurance.
my biggest concern wasn't necessarily that, because I'm sure that we could probably cover that with existing. My concern was more 7.02 on the liability, where it's saying that at our expense, we'll carry $1 million and an aggregate of 500,000 as well.
Yes. And this is one of the sections that we need to work in. I put this in there, but I use the insurance policies we already have in place with the city. That's what's going to be filled in there. So if it's not the same, because we were under the gun this last week, getting all this together and getting it for the packet, I went ahead and filled it in with that. But I'm going to get together with the city to make sure we use the same insurance policy. We're not going to exceed what we have
Or
already.
purchase new,
No.
but be under the same blanket.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Additionally, on that, I mean, it would just seem that, I mean, we're under the gun and we need to approve it, but can we make, and just your advice on this one, approve it as it's presented, but pending final legal review before
Yes.
it becomes effective?
Pending legal review and the request from PSJ. And I don't know, Mr. Ponce, we're supposed to have another meeting later this month, so I don't know if we can wait. If this commission doesn't feel comfortable, and if we have time, maybe we can go ahead and table this or take no action and bring it back once we get more information from PSJ. Is that something we can do, or we cannot?
We could do that potentially, yes. We just make sure that it is approved before the timeline, which is the 31st.
First?
Yes.
And they're going to meet on the 30th, correct?
Yes, that's why. So, so they'll approve it, but by that time, they would have communicated with us of any changes that need to be specifically made.
What we can do is, you can approve it subject to legal review, and then we can also bring it back to you just to show you what the final product looks like on our next meeting, if that's okay with this
I
commission.
think that would be fine. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Ponce? On this item?
No.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented pending legal review and request that it be returned back for review by the commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, consider and approve the land lease between PSJ ISD and the City of San Juan related to the leasing San Juan Mayfield Parks, third field. Mr. Ponce.
Yes, this is in regards to the transfer of the lights. When we were working with PSGA to get the interlocal agreement, they contacted me and notified me that there was never a land lease agreement put in place when the park was initially built, which was, I don't recall, I believe it was in 2006 or 7, when they actually built the park on their property. So they had nothing on file, and there's nothing that has an agreement between the city and the school district. So they asked that we prepare one, so we can also move forward in getting the interlocal, so we can get the project completed.
So it's just to approve what is already in existence, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, consider and approve the interlocal agreement between PSGISD and the City of San Juan, Texas for installation, maintenance, and payment of utility service for the park lights at San Juan Mayfield Park, third field. Mr. Ponce.
And this is the interlocal where essentially, they've agreed that, yes, we can install the lights, but of course, we have to pay the utilities, and we continue to do the maintenance on the fields and to maintain the facility itself.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, that's it for you, Mr. Ponce. Thank you. Item E, consider the termination of the interlocal agreement between the City of Edinburgh, Dustin Michael Sakula Memorial Library, and the City of San Juan Memorial Library. Ms. Sesson.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. We had an agreement since 2010 for Edinburgh, the library, to host the services for our ILS, Integrated Library System. The company that we have it from, the Library Corporation, TLC, is going to do it because they're going to the cloud, whatever that is. I don't know. So next time you look for me, I'm on the cloud, so. And the county still, and I think next meeting, I'm going to bring the interlocal agreement with the county for the services we provide. And they still pay for the ILS, and then the money that is assigned to all of the libraries is divided equally to the libraries. But on this one, we're going to have some savings when the company, because we don't have, the Edinburgh Library is the intermediary. So the company automatically is going to do the hosting of the ILS, and we're going to save some money. So, and as the letter says, it's going to be prorated because it's renewed each year, and the fees will be prorated for the year 2015 to the date of termination, which is May 15.
So our getting out of it now doesn't cause any problems of so much notice before you,
No, because the interlocal agreement said that we have to give 60 days.
60 days.
Which we're given 60 days.
as of today?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any questions? If not, is there a motion for approval as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
F, consider and approve the correspondence with the City of San Juan, Texas to Hidalgo County Commission related to the TERS authorizing mayor to affix her signature on the aforementioned correspondence submit to Hidalgo County Commission. Mr. Rodriguez.
Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to come before you. Before you is a letter that the last, I guess about a month or two back, the City Commission authorized to meet with our legal counsel, Mr. Gilbert Vasquez, and Mr. Tom Spurgeon to come up with a letter to present to y'all that would be acceptable to turn into the county judge, Ramon Garcia. And in that letter, and during our discussions, the City Commission approved zones, and these are the zones that are listed here. I come before you tonight just to see if you have any questions. I do not need approval at this time. If y'all would choose to approve it, that would be okay, but if you do not need approval, I do not need approval tonight. What I wanted to do was just to present the letter to you. This came to us from Mr. Vasquez and Tom Spurgeon, the attorney helping us with the TIERS matter before us. And then, of course, the approval, which you've already done, but just to make sure that we're clear on the zones. So if you have any questions.
I do have questions. One of the things that we discussed, I saw the initial for all the zones, 100%, and then it says in the alternative, maybe 80%, because another city is getting that offered to them. But one of the things that I know we had in our discussion and discussion with the county judge was that proposing which areas would be 100%, with their understanding that we would be on those within the next 4 to 5 years, or even shorter, that would be ready to develop and that they would be open for that. Are we just doing a blanket right now and then negotiating it? Is that what we're trying to do? Because we didn't specify
Yes.
which tracks would be at 100, which would propose at a different rate.
The way I was explained this was that we were going to provide the areas and we were going to request 100%.
Okay.
No, thinking that perhaps it would not be granted. So we at least want to start at 100%.
That's fine.
But these are the areas, and I think that we cover that in Exhibits 1, 2, and 3, and 4. When I was explaining this, and then when we provided it to Mr. Spurgeon, he added this, the alternative section you're speaking of?
Yes,
He added that and put in the 80% because we requested 100% when it left San Juan. He changed it to the 80%. But-
Okay. It just gives us an opportunity to put before him what we've been talking, and then find a time that we can sit with the county for the consideration of how to structure this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Very good.
That is all, Mayor, that I have before you.
And if we approve this, we're approving it as is, and then requesting, what's the next step after this?
Well, the next step would be to have it, put it on letterhead and then submit it to the county commission for consideration. But I'm not sure, when I spoke to Mr. Rodriguez, I wasn't sure if he wanted to do that or if he just wanted to give it to you all so you all can take a look at it and see, maybe we'd add some more, for example, what you pointed out, well, I don't like this, or I think we should add this instead, and get back with Mr. Because really, Mr. Spurgeon is the expert in this case. So we just got all the facts together down here, and we put it all in this letter. He looked at it, and he changed a couple of things. But I think I don't know if you feel comfortable with allowing them to kind of take this in, consider it, and then bring it back and say, I think we should add this, or you forgot this piece of history, take it to Mr. Spurgeon and see what he thinks before we submit it to the county commission, because we do have time, correct?
Yes, no, we have time, Mayor. It's a matter of that I wanted to get this before y'all, before all of you, and then that you give me feedback and say, you know what, yes, we're happy, bring us back to the letterhead signed by the mayor, and we'll go ahead and set up that meeting and get it going through the
I
county.
think maybe a little background on kind of what we have projected because of the interest that's been shown on certain regions. And I think that if we are able to develop that, we do have some folks interested specifically in Region 1, Region 4, that already come before us, that maybe that's a way to propose it as well. If we can add maybe as an appendix, these are the things that are projected right now, so that when they're looking at it, we're also giving a little bit more history of, we do have something going. We're not just saying, give this to us and we'll figure out who's come in, but rather it's being worked on as we speak. That may give it the consideration that we can get many more of these to stay at 100, because I think that's kind of the feedback. We want to make sure that we give them a little bit more, these are developing quicker than not. And maybe we can identify those through the EDC where we do have,
Right.
a bit more firm commitments or interests.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and Commissioners, I've been talking to Mr. Spurgeon just to make, we spoke with Gilbert. There is some interest in these areas, and we want to make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse, that we do everything in the right way so we can maximize the potentials of the tiers and the potential of any savings that we can have for the city, that we wouldn't have to put up front, or the EDC. So, but yeah, that's what it's before you today, Mayor. And we can definitely, like I said, I don't need any action tonight. Just
Okay, then
I
we'll
wanted
go
to
ahead
share it
and,
with
do we
you.
table this and,
You can table it or
Yeah.
no action, however you want to handle it.
okay. Since we've had the discussion, then,
We could table it and then bring it back, because it is
That's
going to
fine.
need some action.
okay, let's go ahead and, is there a motion to table this item? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Consent agenda, approval of minutes for February 17, 2015, regular meeting. Any comments on that? I will turn in my corrections to you, Ms. Ramirez. Is there a motion to approve that? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll now enter into executive session under the Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that the meeting be open. under Code Section 551.072, Section 2, deliberating regarding economic development negotiations, and 551.072, subsection 2, consultation with Attorney A to discuss or deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive for Project Cherokee. We're entering the executive at 6:46. On the record at 6:56 regarding item in executive session to discuss or deliberate the offer of financial or other incentive for the Project Cherokee. Council? No action at this point.
No action, Mayor.
Very good. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:56.